of martial law. This radio program intended for informational purposes only. The information does not constitute legal advice. The law is constantly changing. The information may not be complete or correct depending on the date and your particular legal problem. Each legal problem depends on its individual facts, and different jurisdictions have different laws and regulations. Because of that, you should not act or rely on any of the information in this segment without seeking the advice of a competent attorney licensed to practice law in your jurisdiction for your particular problem. Say a guy like Marshall Chriswell, who's on the line with us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Todd.
Good to have you with us here today. So Valentine's Day is coming up, and it's a season of love, but unfortunately, sometimes that love sort of falls apart. And couples who have gotten all hitched up, well, they break up, and divorce is immediately ahead. So let's talk about that process. What are some of the most common questions that people would have in a consultation about a potential divorce with you?
Sure. Todd, at this point in my career, I've done hundreds of divorce consultations, and there are definitely, some common questions that people ask. One is, how long is this going to take? Not the consultation itself, the divorce process, right?
Okay.
And how long is it going to be until I can be legally divorced, and I can move on with my life? How long is it going to take to get, if there's child custody things, dispute, how long is it going to take to get these things resolved? And, I think there's kind of a joke among lawyers and maybe the public that a lawyer's answer to a legal question is almost always, well, it depends.
Uh-huh.
And that's very true here as well. It depends on your case. I've had divorces where a spouse comes in, they say, well, I've talked to my wife and we've agreed on basically everything. We just need you to draw up a settlement agreement and get the paperwork done. And we actually have a settlement agreement signed before we even file the divorce complaint.
Mm-hmm.
And I've also had cases where the parties are just at loggerheads and can't reach an agreement, and we have to go through a court process, and it takes years to resolve. I've had cases that have taken 3 or 4 years to resolve. So it really depends. I can tell you that I can't get you divorced in less than 90 days because the Pennsylvania law gives a 90-day kind of cooling-off period that even if we have that settlement agreement signed and everything worked out, we can file those things, you can't get legally divorced until 90 days passes from the date of your complaint. And so that means that if I get a client that says, hey, I'm getting married in a month, but I'm not divorced from my ex-wife yet, so can you get that done real quick so I can get married next month? That can't happen.
Can't do that.
So, I can't do that. So they've got to postpone their wedding. But so that's the minimum is 90 days, and then from there it just depends on how cooperative the parties are with one another, or how long it takes to get through the court process.
Well, as you gave us that most common question, let's go back to one of the things that you said there and ask it in a different way. Is the thorniest problem that you might have in a divorce case custody of children?
Certainly, it can be the most emotional, and it can be it's very drug out because the custody case often lasts. The custody case always lasts until the child or children at issue turn 18. And there are ebbs and flows in that case throughout the life of the child, often where just different circumstances with the kids and the parents, and that can be very thorny in that respect. But it depends. I mean, if lots of cases don't have child custody, but even cases that have both financial issues and child custody issues, sometimes those financial issues, it takes a lot to get those resolved because of the nature of the parties' assets and the different arguments that are being made.
Yeah. Complicated questions such as a parent who wants to move with their child out of state or far away. I would guess that would be particularly hard to resolve.
Yes, and clients are often surprised at how difficult that is. A client will come in and say, well, I've got primary custody of the kids. and maybe this is mom, and she says, well, and dad sees him, every other weekend and on holidays, and I'm in a new relationship. I'm engaged, and my husband lives in Kentucky. My fiance lives in Kentucky, and I'm gonna move there. We're gonna get married, so I'm gonna take the kids, and that'll be no problem, right? And that's a difficult process, right? Pennsylvania makes it difficult for a reason. The child relocation laws, if you're moving a child any significant distance from the other parent, or changing their school district, or moving out of the county, certainly moving out of state, you have got to get the other parent's consent, and you've got to agree to a modified custody order. If you can't do that, then you essentially have to go through a trial, and there are various relocation factors. It's you've got to prove to the judge that this is really in the kid's best interest, and it's not just in my best interest. I don't want to, not because I just want to go live with in this other state. There's got to be better economic opportunities. There's got to be better educational opportunities, maybe more family support. You've got to really show a judge that this is in the kid's best interest, and they're going to be able to maintain a relationship with that parent that's left behind.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to get too far afield here from asking more common questions. When people come in for that initial consultation with you, what's another common question that you often hear?
Another common question is, will my spouse be able to get part or half of my retirement? Or conversely, will I be able to access my spouse's retirement account as part of the divorce? Am I going to be able to get part of that? And the answer usually to that question is yes. Because it generally those retirement accounts we're talking about, your employer retirement IRAs, 403bs, 401ks, thrift savings plans, the pensions, those kinds of things, which you and your employer have probably contributed to over a period of time, and there's been a growth on that investment, and often they're the largest portion of a couple's savings. Just because it's in your name alone and you got it through your employment doesn't mean your spouse isn't going to get part of it. And how much is a question to be agreed upon, or you look to what are called the equitable distribution factors in Pennsylvania law, and determine, okay, is the spouse entitled to half of the marital portion or something more or less than that based on their circumstances. But one thing that people overlook is that, often that entire retirement account is not marital. Maybe you started that job before you got married, or you've been separated for a couple years before your divorce proceedings, and you've been contributing, and there's been a growth on that investment in that amount of time. It takes a very detailed analysis of a pension or retirement to determine what portion of it is actually marital, and that can often be significantly smaller than the full amount, and then what portion of that smaller amount is the spouse entitled to. So you really need to have somebody who knows what they're doing looking at that, and if your divorce lawyer we can't do that. We're not an actuary. We can't do those calculations. There are experts out there that we can refer people to and work with to get those calculations made, because it can be substantial.
Well, obviously, when people are getting divorced, there's something that has gone wrong in the relationship itself, so they're not on the best of terms, most likely. But you often hear of somebody who works to put her husband or his wife through college. They get a wonderful job because of that, and the sacrifice that is made by the spouse who actually helped to pay for that. So they want a piece of the future earnings in that career because they gave so much in order to make that career happen. I would, again, this is just my guess, I would guess that there are often very, very emotional discussions about that.
Absolutely. You've got kind of the quintessential stay-at-home mom who hasn't by agreement of the parties, hasn't pursued a career, education, and experience when maybe she could have because she was at home taking care of the family, and you've got a husband who went and got a degree, maybe a post-secondary professional degree, and has a very good career, and wife is not in as good a position to move forward. This gender-wise, I mean, this goes either way, and I've had both situations. Certainly could be the man that put the wife through school and supported her the entire way along. And the questions then become, okay, we look at the alimony factors, and that's another common question people ask. Will I get alimony or do I have to pay alimony when my divorce is said and done? Mm-hmm. And there is a list of factors, alimony factors in Pennsylvania that we've got to look at, and how long have they been married? What was the standard of living during the marriage? What's the health situation of both spouses moving forward? Who's got greater earning potential and to what degree? What are the relative assets and liabilities that each are taking from the marriage? And can that spouse that's asking for alimony, can they meet their reasonable needs without it? And what's reasonable based on what their lifestyle has been? So, you look at all those things, and sometimes you say, yeah, I mean, the mom here that's taken primary custody of 2 kids and doesn't have a lucrative career is entitled to some alimony for a period of time, and there's even a such thing as permanent alimony. So it all depends.
Yeah, my goodness. Well, this is one of those cases where a relationship with an attorney is not only called for, but a relationship with a competent attorney who has done this before is highly advisable, and certainly you have done this before. So what should people do if they need to get in touch with you and maybe begin a proceeding that obviously they don't want to, but it's gotten to that point?
Yeah, and I would just say finally that there are way too many people out there right now because of, and we talk about this in every type of case, way too many people out there trying to do their own divorces right now, or do divorces with some sort of an online service, and people are getting not the outcome that they should. So it's important. But if somebody wanted to contact me, my number is 724-465-5826. You can stop and see me in the old RMP building at 655 Church Street here in Indiana, or go online. Check us out at www.westernpalawyer.com.
Marshall, thank you. Have a great day.
Hey, Todd, thank you. Take care.